Tonight, more than 1,300 people sickened in the U.S. At least 39 have died in this country.
After very careful consideration, I announced today that the New York City public schools will remain closed.
I never in my lifetime would I have thought that a pandemic would have been the thing that stopped the world. Pre-pandemic, it was a lot easier to organize. It was a lot easier to be in community with folks, like in physical community, which is definitely something that I miss greatly. Like my heart aches for that all the time.
There are some new numbers out tonight showing how the virus is affecting Americans disproportionately along racial lines.
African Americans are 3 to 4 times more likely to contract the virus than their white neighbors, and that Latinos and African Americans are much more likely to die from the virus than their white neighbors. We don't know why that is exactly, but what is clear is that what has been anecdotally presenting itself over the past several months is now backed up by hard data.
A pandemic on top of a war zone, on top of systemic issues, is of course a problem on top of a problem.
It's not just interpersonal violence, it's from the institutions, from the state, from laws. And I think that this pandemic has really shined a light on how all of these things are a complex web of issues, and that gun violence is often the end result. People are scared, people are frightened, are frustrated. They don't have jobs, they don't have enough food, they don't have the money to pay for rent. And I think that right now is like a reckoning.
But first, a surge in gun violence once again today in New York City.
Thanks to the unrest caused by the pandemic, New York is in the midst of a gun violence crisis. The shootings up nearly 80% so far this year. It's not a coincidence that gun sales were also 80% higher nationally during the pandemic. People are panic buying guns, including so-called ghost guns.
This is what some people call a ghost gun. It's an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. It has no serial number. It's untraceable. I didn't have to go through a background check or any sort of waiting period to get it. The government has no knowledge of its existence, in fact. And that's because, legally speaking, I didn't buy this gun. I made it.
Right now, in the middle of a pandemic, I had shootings in some of my nightclub buildings, right? Deaths, multiple homicides.
In a way, it's not necessarily surprising that it's happening because there's so much tension and economic hardship and stress, and students are not in schools, young people are not in the school buildings, and so they're still being affected on a day-to-day basis by the daily gun violence that doesn't get the same media attention.
The pandemic has made all of the root causes of gun violence worse and has led to more shootings during this time. And that is what makes our program so essential right now. Throughout 2020, we have continued to be a source of strength, stability, and safety for students we serve. When we had to rethink our in-person advocacy, we invited students and members to participate in Remote Advocacy Week instead. And we talked to dozens of elected leaders about how investing in communities will help reduce gun violence. When schools shut down in March, we quickly adapted our reaction curriculum to work in virtual classrooms, some of the only live instructions our students received. We didn't stop there. This summer, our Miller Mentorship students thrived in our online community.
When the program was in our school, I enjoyed it a lot, so I wanted to see if it would be the same experience, and it is. And I really enjoyed it over this past couple weeks.
And we even trained 13 new teachers to deliver reaction this fall. We're set to work remotely with students in more than 24 schools in 2020-21 year. We may be locked down, but we're not backing down. Instead, we're finding power in place.